NASCAR Fox is happy to bring you round number 3 of the 2007 Nextel Cup Series race season. And this time we'll be still in the West Coast area for our West Coast swing. Here at Las Vegas International Speedway, we're going to be running under the lights due to a rain delay. Last week at California, we saw a lot of drama unfolding. At the front of the field, Jeff Burton, who led most of the laps in that race, blows the motor just after the halfway point of the race. Then Jimmie Johnson takes the lead after pit stops when he blows the motor just a few laps after the pit stops, giving the win to Dale Earnhardt Jr. Today, Jimmie Johnson is sitting 37th in the points, looking to get into the top 36. However, he starts on the pole today. One thing I have forgotten to mention yesterday, and you saw it scrolling through the video at the end, was the championship standings and how they are looking. We're going to go ahead and go over, do an overview of it right now if you haven't checked out the last race. Carl Edwards and Jeff Gordon are tied for the first place with 335 points. 16 points back is our last week's winner of Dale Earnhardt Jr. Fourth place, Kevin Harvick, 19 points behind the leader. And then rounding out the top 5 in the chase, well, not the chase right now, but chase, well, the standings now, is Tony Stewart, 33 points back. Sixth place, the biggest mover of the top 10 is Denny Hamlin, gaining 8 spots to get into the 6th spot. 42 back from the leader. Casey Kane sits 7th in the championship standings, currently 54 points back. Brian Vickers 8th in the championship points, 62 points back. David Reagan loses 7 spots to get into the 9th place spot, 68 points back. And rounding out the top 10 is Ryan Newman, sitting 84 points back from the championship leader. Well, before we get this race underway, we first got to show you the starting lineup for today's race. So let's go ahead and get the starting lineup going. The front row for today's race will consist of the number 48 of Jimmie Johnson on the pole. To the outside of Jimmie Johnson is the number 11 of Denny Hamlin. Row 2 is a repeat of last week's row number 1. Tony Stewart to the inside of Kevin Harvick. In row number 3 would be last week's Dale Earnhardt Jr. starting in the 6th place spot with Jeff Burton on the inside, rounding out the top 5. In row number 4, it is a Hendrick row 4 with Jeff Gordon on the inside of Kyle Busch in the 5. Moving on to row number 5 to round out the top 10, it is another Hendrick driver of Casey Mears starting on the outside of Casey Kane in the 9. Outside of the top 10, we have Carl Edwards in the 99, starting to the outside of Scott Riggs in the number 10. In row number 7, we have Clint Bowyer in the 07 car, starting to the outside of the number 38, and David Gilliland, who started on the pole for the Daytona 500 a few weeks back. In row number 8, we have Kurt Busch in the 2, starting to the outside of Mark Martin in the 01 car. Row number 9, we have the 88 of Ricky Rudd, who started on the outside pole position in the Daytona 500, starting to the outside of Matt Kenseth in the 17. Row number 10, Dave Blaney in the 22 will start to the outside of Bobby Labonte in the 43 car. In row 11, we have David Reagan, who finished second in the 500, starting on the outside of Reed Sorenson in the 41 car from Chip Ganassi. Row number 12, we have Robbie Gordon in the 7, who missed last week, making another start this year. We'll start to the outside of a DEI car, Martin Truex Jr. in the 1 car. In row 13, Elliott Sadler in the 19 car from Evernham will start on the outside of David Stremme in the 40 car. Row number 14, Ryan Newman with another terrible qualifying spot will start on the outside of the number 44 car of Dale Jarrett. Row 15, we have the number 42 of Juan Pablo Montoya starting on the outside of Greg Biffle in the 16 car. In row 16, we have Kyle Petty in the 45 car starting on the outside of Kenny Schrader in the 21 car. In row 17, we have a Red Bull Racing driver, Brian Vickers in the 83, starting on the outside of Jamie McMurray in the 26 car. In row 18, we have a Joe Gibbs driver of J.J. Yaley in the 18 car starting. On the outside of Michael Waltrip, who also missed last week. Row 19, we have Tony Raines in the 96, starting on the outside of Jeff Green in the 66. In row number 20, we have Paul Menard in the 15. From DEI, we'll start alongside of the 78 of Kenny Wallace. And then moving on into our final row, we have the other Red Bull Racing driver of AJ Allmendinger in the 84, starting alongside the 00 car of David Rudiman. Well, that's your starting lineup for today's race. However, we have several drivers who DNQ'd, so let's pull that list up right about now. Warren Burton in the 4 missed today's race as well as Joe Nemechek in the 13, Sterling Marlin in the 14, Jeremy Mayfield in the 36, Kevin LePage in the 37, Mike Bliss in the 49, and Johnny Sauter in the 70 all missed the race today. And the field is about to start rolling off, so now we'll send it back down to the field. Pace car will lead these guys out of pit road heading into turn number 1 and number 2. During practice today, we noticed that the high line is definitely not going to be the greatest of lines to run throughout today. So just be aware of that. The outside line is definitely not going to have the biggest of runs at all tonight. Due to the rains, the outside line doesn't have much grip, and all that grip and rubble and all that sort of stuff went to the inside line. So the inside line will definitely have more of an advantage as we go on through this race. But in any case, Jimmie Johnson, who's had 2 terrible weeks, will lead them off to the green flag here at Las Vegas International Speedway. Tony Stewart and Kevin Harvick were the front row last week. They'll be in row number 2 in the same order as they were last week. Pace cars down. We'll say for the 3rd time this year. Boogity, 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 boys. Let's go racing. And even as they head into turn 1, that'll change quickly as Jimmie Johnson quickly clears Denny Hamlin. Tony Stewart about to look to the inside as they come out of turns 1 and 2. Tony Stewart now looking to the inside with a little bit of help from Jeff Burton in the 31. Coming into turns 3 and 4, Johnson slides up the track. However, no big mistakes there. Burton looking underneath, can't get them. Instead, Jeff Gordon will try and take the 2nd spot away as we complete lap number 1. Tony Stewart leads the first lap. Gordon moves up to the 2nd spot, and Burton falling back is what we were talking about with the outside line. As you can see with Denny Hamlin and Jimmie Johnson, the front row are falling to the back of the field. Out of the top 10, I think, as of right now. Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon, 1 and 2. Gordon makes a move to the inside for the lead. Coming to the line, Gordon will get him there. Gordon leads this lap. Casey Kane makes a move to the 2nd place spot. He'll do just that. Mark Martin now in 3rd. Stewart's losing a lot of spots as here comes Matt Kenseth to try and take the 4th spot away. As Jimmie Johnson starting to gain back those spots that he lost on the first 2 laps. He's now back into the top 10. And now he may make a move to the top 5 if he gets underneath Tony Stewart. However, Jeff Gordon has led a lap, and he is quickly being caught up by the 9 car of Casey Kane. Mark Martin still in 3rd, however. He's hanging on to the back bumper of that 9 car, giving him a little push. And now Martin looks to the inside to try and take the 2nd spot away from Casey Kane. As we complete lap number 4, the only thing that's changed in the top 3 is 2nd spot. Mark Martin now in 2nd. Casey Kane falls to 3rd. Now he has a little bit of help, or a little bit of challenging stuff behind him as Matt Kenseth now takes the 3rd spot away. Stewart also moves up to 4th. Kane falls back to outside the top 5. Jimmie Johnson already back into the top 5 after dropping to, I think, either 9th or 10th just a couple of laps ago. Here's Scott Riggs at the 10. He's in the top 10. So far, so good for that 10 car, who didn't start too well. We go through the field here just for a quick second. We'll find our outside pole sitter of Denny Hamlin all the way, almost in dead last, as you can see, as well as last week's winner of Dale Earnhardt Jr. back in last place, not having a good run whatsoever. That's all due to the outside line. Jeff Gordon now continuing to lead the way. However, Mark Martin breathing down Jeff Gordon's neck as we complete lap number 5. Stewart now up to 3rd. Johnson now up to 4th. And Jeff Burton now up to 5th. We'll go ahead and watch these speeds. 2:02 entering turns 3 and 4 for our leader. Stewart now makes a move to the inside of Mark Martin to try and take the second spot away. And now Stewart will get the second spot as we come out of turns 1 and 2. It's just 2 cars battling for the lead, as third place is now just more than 2.5 car lengths back behind Stewart. Burton now up to 3rd. 8 laps going to be completed. Will Stewart make a move for the lead? No, he does not. Stewart loses a little bit of time exiting 4. Scott Riggs now in the top 5, as well as David Gilliland in the 38. It's just like a super speedway here. Positions will change a lot. This ain't no ordinary mile-and-a-half race where if you get a position, you're keeping it for a couple of laps. It'll change a lot, as we can see here with Stewart trying to take the lead away from Jeff Gordon, coming past the start-finish line, entering turn number 1. Little bit of contact between Stewart and Gordon, as Stewart now takes the lead away from Gordon. Now Gordon's losing a couple spots. He's now down to 4th place. Probably going to lose that spot as well, as Casey Cade's looking underneath him. And now look who's in 2nd. Scott Riggs in the 10. Riggs making a move underneath Stewart to try and take the lead away. Can't get there. Tries to move him up the track, however. Now here comes Casey Cade. He's going to try and take the 2nd spot away from his teammate of Scott Riggs. And he'll do just that. Now Casey Cade up to the 2nd spot. Here comes Gordon to try to take the 3rd spot away. Stewart, however, hanging on for the lead by almost 0.2 of a second. Gordon tries to make a move underneath Cade, but he can't get there. Top 3 are single filed out, but they're nose to tail. 4th place is 2.5 car lengths back from 3rd place of Jeff Gordon. 4th place being Greg Biffle. Casey Kane almost looking to the inside of Stewart. He's going to actually look to the inside as they come across the start-finish line. Casey Kane looks to the inside of Tony Stewart, has the nose out ahead, and he'll get that spot. Gordon also moves up a spot, moving into 2nd as Stewart loses 2 positions. And now Stewart's probably going to lose 3rd place as well to Mark Martin. As we've seen before, that outside line will just kill your momentum in a snap of a finger. Contact between Casey Kane and Jeff Gordon trying to battle for the lead, but they keep it nice and straight. Close call for the 9 and the 24. The top 2 almost ended up wrecking each other. That would have been scary for most of the guys behind them, because they would have probably gotten involved as well. Casey Kane and Jeff Gordon 1 and 2. Mark Martin in the 3rd spot. And they're all single file. Contact again between Casey Cade and Jeff Gordon. Gordon trying to really get to the inside of Cade, and Cade just keeps throwing the block on the 24 machine. But now Gordon's to the inside, and now Gordon will take the lead away. And now here comes Mark Martin to try to take the 2nd spot away. 4th place is Scott Riggs, and 5th place is Jeff Burton. Mark Martin now up to the 3rd spot. Scott Riggs now up into the 3rd spot. Now Burton's going to move up a spot to the 4th place spot, and Casey Cade's going to drop to outside the top 5 and allow Jimmie Johnson to enter it as well. Well, Gordon is all by himself right now, but that will not stay for long. As we've seen before, Stewart was behind him by almost 0.3 of a second, and that gap closed as quick as what's going on right now. Mark Martin closing the gap between him and Jeff Gordon, as he's got a little bit of help behind him with the 10 of Scott Riggs and the 31 of Jeff Burton. Last time by was 24 Hundredths of a second. Big crash happening in turn number 1. Johnson, Harvick, McMurray, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Michael Waltrip, David Reagan, Elliott Sadler. Just a few of many drivers who were involved in this accident. Huge impacts for many drivers, and that will bring out our first. Jimmie Johnson's involved as well. More issues for the 48 machine this season. Blown up engine while leading last week, and now wrecking out early in this one. This will not help the 48 whatsoever in points, as we are under caution for not only the first time tonight, but the first time this season. We ran Daytona and California with no cautions. Now tonight is our first instance of a yellow flag. A couple drivers going down pit road of our front runners. Jeff Gordon, Scott Riggs, Tony Stewart, the 3 drivers up in the front pitting. Several other front runners leading, but we'll reset the field here in a minute while we go back and take a look and see what caused the wreck. So this is what happened. Coming out of turns 3 and 4, Harvick looked to the inside of Jimmie Johnson, and Johnson came down in front of Kevin Harvick. Harvick ended up turning the 48. And Johnson got in contact with Harvick, and they both got set up the track. Stewart, Kane, and Bowyer miss it, as well as the 38 of Gilliland. And then they hit Greg Biffle, sending a big chain reaction. McMurray in the 26, Matt Kenseth in the 17. Let's see who else got involved. There's Truex, Ricky Rudd, David Reagan, Martin Truex Jr., Waltrip barely gets a smudge of damage. The 19 of Sadler gets turned by the 45 of Kyle Petty. The 42 of Montoya gets damage. I think Schrader got a piece of that action as well as the 41. I think there was like 10 drivers that all got damage in this wreck. So the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400 is under caution for the first time today, as well as it being the first time in 2007 that we've had a caution. So we'll take a quick commercial break, and we will return in a couple of minutes, and we'll restart this race and get everybody hopefully settled down in a single file restart. We will return in a minute.
Since you guys taught me to drive, I'm gonna teach you to wrestle. Denny, let's start with you. I'll show you a move. It's right over here. This is a body slam. What? Not bad.
Here, man, let me help you up.
Hey. Huh? No! No! These guys are phenomenal.
Start every day with Gillette Fusion Power Phenom. With Gillette's most comfortable shave, you'll feel phenomenal.
Newman!
Gillette Fusion Power Phenom, the only razor used by the Gillette Young Guns.
For even more comfort, use Gillette Fusion Hydrogel. Comfortable?
Spring has arrived,
What are you doing?
and in the insect kingdom, love is in
I was just seeing what else is on.
Well, I just spun my car through the grass at 120 miles an hour.
After an elaborate mating ritual,
I'll go back.
It's too late now. You missed your chance.
devours the hen.
I'm sorry.
You watch. I'm gonna come back and win this thing.
Oh, and around goes a 33 and Nick Bergwald. Can he save it? Oh, man.
I think how lucky I am to be a NASCAR Winston Cup driver, and how fortunate I am to have a great sponsor like Napa Auto Parts. Because Napa understands quality and value, and the importance of having a friendly, knowledgeable staff. And it's at times like this, looking around at the empty grandstands and listening to the silence of pit road, that I realize
I'm at the wrong track.
We'll get the 1 to go signal here when we come across the line to complete lap 20. So we'll restart on lap 22. Let's go ahead and go through the top 10 here, since there were a lot of drivers up at the front that pit. So we'll see. So this field has been split up a lot. So let's go ahead and go over the top 10 here. Mark Martin in first, Jeff Burton in second, Casey Kane in third, Clint Bowyer in fourth, David Gilliland will round out your top 5, Jamie McMurray in 6th, JJ Yaley 7th, Brian Vickers in 8th, Casey Mears 9th, Carl Edwards rounds out your top 10. Let's go ahead and find Jeff Gordon, who was the first driver to pit. He sits 25th. Stewart, who was the second driver to pit, is sitting 29th. The rest of the field on back. And I think 2 drivers, if I remember, let's check the leaderboard. 2 drivers have retired from the race, that being the 29 of Kevin Harvick, who will finish dead last, 42nd. And Jimmie Johnson is going to finish 41st. So 2 weeks in a row that the 48 is going to DNF. Tough break for the 48, but next week is Atlanta, so hopefully we'll see something good by that 48 team there, as the pace car will roll into the pits coming out of 3 and 4. We'll get a restart here to complete lap 21. We'll restart on lap 22 as Mark Martin is about ready to hit the pedal to the metal, get this race back underway. Green flag back in the air. Mark Martin, Jeff Burton pulled away by the field just a little bit, as now they go side by side for the lead, exiting 1 and 2. Let's see who's going to hold it into this corner. It looks like it'll be Jeff Burton in the 31 to get the lead here. Casey Kane is now going to move up to second as he's underneath Mark Martin, and now he clears Mark Martin. Casey Kane once more, however, he goes for the lead coming out of the 3 and 4 to the line. Casey Kane will lead this lap. David Gilliland now moves up to second. JJ Yaley up to third. Man, a lot of back markers all the way up to the front as well. David Gilliland didn't start. He started 13th, and now he's up to the second spot. David Gilliland had a bad start at California, and he had a great start at Daytona with the pole. Now he's also having a good day today up at the front of the field. David Gilliland didn't finish so well at California. He's looking to turn that around with a nice race here tonight, and he's going to do just that as he takes the lead away from Casey Kane. Second place being traded to Clint Bowyer as Casey Kane now falls back several positions. But David Gilliland now has a car length and a half lead over Clint Bowyer coming out of 3 and 4. And David Gilliland will lead a lap in this race. But here comes Clint Bowyer hard charging him. That gap went from a car length and a half. Car length and a half all the way up to a side-by-side battle, which Clint Bowyer has now passed David Gilliland. I'm so sorry about that. I clicked my Windows key on accident. Dale Earnhardt Jr. now in second place, but now here comes Carl Edwards to challenge Earnhardt Jr. for that spot, as well as Casey Mears in the 25. Casey Mears moves on up to the third spot, looking for the second spot underneath Carl Edwards in the 99. And I think at the line, Mears got it. Did he? Yes, he did. And now Casey Mears looking to get that first place spot, looking to lead a lap. The last time Casey Mears led was at Daytona, but he only led like 3 laps, if I remember. 3 or 4 laps. Clint Bowyer in the lead, but the gap from him and Casey Mears has disintegrated in just a matter as a quarter, as now Mears looks to the inside for the lead on Clint Bowyer. And Casey Mears now takes the lead here at Las Vegas. And now Clint Bowyer is going to lose second spot to Casey Kane, as now him and Dale Earnhardt Jr. move their way on up to the front of the field. Casey Kane now in second place, Earnhardt Jr. third, Jeff Burton in fourth, Mark Martin in fifth, as Jr. looks for second, can't get the nose underneath Kane. He may do it in this quarter, yes he does. Turns 1 and 2, Jr. goes for the second spot. And now Kane will fall back 3 positions, maybe 4. Now Mark Martin looks for a piece of real estate, moving on up to the third spot. He just has to get by Burton if he can get him in this quarter. Little bit of bumping. A bump and run by the 0-1, and Mark Martin moves him all the way up to the third spot. Now he's looking for the second spot. Can't pull that same bump move in the tri-oval, though. But he'll do it in turns 1 and 2. Mark Martin now up to second. one position away from taking the lead away from Casey Mears. It'll be a challenge for him since Casey Mears is one of the fastest drivers of today's race. As you can see him just pulling away from the field ahead. But Mark Martin looks to easily close the gap between him and Casey Mears. And Yaley's now on up to the third spot. The gap between first and second is 2.5 tenths of a second. As now Clint Bowyer now moves on up to the third spot with Stewart just right behind him. Mark Martin closing the gap between him and Casey Mears. Casey Mears running first. Mark Martin running second. Mark Martin with a huge run will look underneath Casey Mears. Casey throws the block, and that gets him turned. Stewart involved. Mears hard in the wall. Into Yaley, into Blaney. Many drivers involved. Kyle Petty, Scott Riggs, Edwards, one car, two cars, upside down, Jared in the 44, the 11 of Denny Hamlin, 66 of Green gets off on all fours, Michael Waltrip, Juan Pablo Montoya, David Stremme, Kyle Petty, Paul Menard, many drivers involved in the big one at Las Vegas as Mark Martin he doesn't take the lead. Actually, it's the 07 of Clint Bowyer who takes the lead. Stewart has major hood damage. As we complete lap 31, we're under caution for the second time this season and tonight. Let's go back and let's look at it one more time, if not a few more times, on the onboard perspectives on what happened to cause this wreck. It's the same situation that we saw to bring out the first caution between Jimmie Johnson and Kevin Harvick. Mark Martin had the run. Casey Mears tried to block, and it happens just like that. Stewart tried to avoid it, but that didn't work. And now let's watch the 25. Bam! Gets a hard hit from Yaley, and we'll have a good perspective on all the wrecking here. Scott Riggs in the 10. Just watch as these drivers start piling in, and watch the 44. Up and over, as well as the 11, up and over on the roof. Jarrett barrel rolling 3 or 4 times and lands upside down. Robbie Gordon, Matt Kenseth, last week's winner of juniors involved. Let's get a couple more replays on this to get you guys a better perspective. On board with Jeff Gordon. One more angle. The big one at Las Vegas will claim 15 cars. We'll return in a moment.
You don't have to be at the track to listen to your favorite driver. Fan scan. Outside, looking low, inside. Only from Nextel.
Don't go into the grass. Don't go into turn 3. Don't go into turn 3. God, no. Jerry, don't go into turn 3. Think of your wife. Think of your kids. Don't do it, Jerry. You have so much to live for. Don't go into turn 3. Jerry! Jerry! Why'd you do it, Jerry? Why'd you go into turn 3? We told you not to. No! Jerry! Kentucky Speedway, the most dangerous corner in NASCAR. Dramatic commercial is dramatic. Fuck me.
Hey, I'm your life. I'm the one who took you there. Wish I may, wish I might. Whack for my daddy, oh, some kind of monster. Waiting for the We're so fucked. Shit out of luck. Hardwired to self-destruct. Blacked out. Pop queen, amphetamine, the screams crashed in the silence. Metallica!
Pace car in 1 and 2, we will get the 1 to go next time by. And the reason why we come back from commercial just a little bit earlier than we did the last time by is because if you look at this shot right here, look at all these cars. It didn't last too long, but look at these cars here. Look at the amount of cars that we have. It doesn't look like a lot, does it? You have a lot of drivers who went down pit road. The 7 of Robbie Gordon. I don't think I showed you guys what happened. So I'm going to flash a replay up of what I realized happened to the 7 car. Because I never noticed this while watching the race the first time around. As you can tell, the Kenny Wallace did not have good wreck avoidance skills there. We should be able to get the 1 to go this time by. And when we do, we'll reset the field as follows. Clint Bowyer in first, Mark Martin in second, David Goulding in third, Jeff Burton in fourth, Ryan Newman rounds out your top 5. Another Penske driver in sixth place, that being Kurt Busch. Brian Vickers in 7th, Dave Blaney in 8th, Bobby Labonte in 9th, and last week's winner of Dale Earnhardt Jr. in 10th. I could basically go through the entire rest of the field if I wanted to because there's only 22 cars left on track. There are only 22 cars left on track, but I think only like 15 or 20 do not have any sort of damage whatsoever. So we're just going to go ahead and get this restart going, and we're probably going to be seeing some lap traffic getting the way here as, you know, if we look, here, we see the 24 without the hood. The one car has his back all cut off, and I believe Stewart has engine damage because that was a pretty hard hit that knocked his hood up quite a bit. So we're coming out of turns 3 and 4. We'll get the restart here, which I think will bring us to 40 to go. So we're hit the halfway point of this race. Yeah, we hit the halfway point of this race. Pace cars off. Green flag back in the air here at Las Vegas. We're halfway through this race. Just a little less than, or a little more than halfway through this race here. As Mark Martin and David Gilliland hang on single file. But now Gilliland makes a move for second. Into turns 3 and 4. Gilliland looks for the second spot, and he does get that. And now Mark Martin will drop back several spots. Clint Bowyer continues to lead so far, leading the most laps out of anybody today. It's quiet right now. It's actually getting a lot more quieter than it was earlier. We saw a lot of aggressive moves. And then after the first 2 cautions, now it's gotten a lot more calmer and tamer. As we're seeing the top 4 just single filing it out, just not even trying to attempt any passes. Clint Bowyer in first, David Gilliland second. Kurt Busch trying to move on up to the second spot. Now he does. And AJ Allmendinger, no, not AJ, excuse me, the other Red Bull Racing driver, Brian Vickers in the 83, moves on up to third. Come across the line. Now we'll have 40 laps to go. Race continues to wind down. Now Clint Bowyer is hanging on for what could be the biggest lead that could happen. 0.2 of a second, but I think Kurt Busch is starting to close that gap just a little bit. It's not incredibly noticeable. But Clint Bowyer is hanging on for a lead as he enters turn 3 and 4. Kurt Busch kind of closing the gap, kind of not. Now here's Dave Blaney in the third. I thought Dave Blaney had a little bit of damage from both those accidents, but it looks like it's not hurting him enough. David Reagan now in the top 5 as he's now entered in the 4th spot with Mark Martin in 5th. David Reagan just sitting in the back all day long. He had a terrible race at California and had a great finish, which was second in the Daytona 500. Now with only 20 cars that are, in this race, if he doesn't get in any sort of trouble, David Reagan can have a great finish again. We're only 3 races in. This season is far from over, so we don't know. Maybe that 6 car could be a great contender if as the years go, or as the season winds down. But if we're talking about winding down, this gap between first and second's wind down completely, as now Kurt Busch makes a move for the lead as we complete lap 40 to get 37 to go at the line. Kurt Busch side by side with Clint Bowyer for the lead, and Clint Bowyer will now lose the lead to Kurt Busch in the 2 for Penske. And now, Kurt Busch trying to pull away as much as he can to try and get a big gap going, as Dave Blaney now moves into the 2nd spot. So 1 and 2 have 2 in their number somewhere. Or they have them. Yeah, it's just 2s. Well, that all can change now as Mark Martin now goes for the 2nd spot. Let's actually look at the top 10 fastest laps of tonight. And many of these drivers in the top 10 of the fastest laps are either out of the race or have a lot of damage. And pretty much most of them are either out or have damage from the first 2 wrecks. Scott Riggs, the fastest lap with a 20.619. Jeff Burton, 2nd. Jimmie Johnson, 3rd. Tony Stewart, 4th. David Gilliland in 5th. Casey Kane, 6th. Greg Biffle, 7th. Matt Kenseth, 8th. Jeff Green, 9th fastest lap. That's pretty surprising. And Kevin Harvick in 10th with the fastest lap. Yeah, if you notice, I think like 8 out of the 10 drivers in that list all have some sort of damage or are out of the race. I think all of them actually have some sort of damage because I think the 10 car got involved. Yeah, 10 of Scott Riggs got involved in an accident earlier. No, he's right here. But he does have damage. That hood is definitely bent up a little bit. So basically everybody has damage that was in that top 10 fastest lap. Now battle for second here. Clint Bowyer moves Mark Martin up the track. As Clint Bowyer's back to the second spot, he's looking for the lead. He quickly closed that gap. He didn't lose any time battling with Mark Martin, which usually happens when you're at 1.5 miles. And now Clint Bowyer moves on up to the first place spot. But don't worry, we may see another Busch in the lead, but it's not going to be Kurt Busch. It's going to be his brother Kyle Busch, as Kyle Busch is now in second. Where did that 5 car come from? We don't know. Mark Martin trying to spoil that party. He takes a peek, looks to the inside of Kyle Busch for the second spot. And I think if we're going to have to pick anybody who's going to win this race, it's going to be either the 07 or the 01, because these two are just extremely fast with one another. But don't count out that 31. He hasn't been up at the front for most of this race, but he's up at the front right now, and he could spoil these guys' party. Mark Martin makes a move to the inside for the lead. This time he doesn't turn who he's trying to pass for the lead. This time he passes Clint Bowyer nice and clean as Mark Martin takes the lead away. And Jeff Burton now moves on up to the second spot. David Gilliland now in the third place spot as Bowyer loses not only second, third, but he may even lose fourth place to Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch. 30 laps to go when they cross this line. Remember these lap times. They are extremely quick for a Las Vegas race, as these guys are going extremely fast. Jeff Burton looks to the inside for the lead of Mark Martin, and he'll do just that. Coming out of turns 1 and 2, look at how small this lead pack is. It is just the top 6, all bunched up in a group. Jeff Burton, Mark Martin, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, David Gilliland, and Clint Bowyer all in this pack. Newman sits in the 7th spot, with Brian Vickers in 8th, Scott Riggs in 9th, and Bobby Labonte in 10th. As Mark Martin takes the lead away once again from Jeff Burton, and now he loses the pack. Speaking of losing the pack, I think Gilliland has now lost the pack, so it's now just the top 5 all in one big pack, as Mark Martin now controls the way here at Las Vegas again. So far, I think we've had like 9 or 10 lead changes. Anybody who's counting at home would probably say we've had like 9 or 10 lead changes so far today, and we still have 17 laps left. So there could be a couple more lead changes. So don't say that whoever's in the lead with like 10 to go will be the winner, because what we've seen so far today, that hasn't been the case. I think the drivers who's led the most laps, most consistent in a row laps, has been, I think, basically anybody who's been under caution, or I think it may have been Clint Bowyer who led while under caution and a couple laps under the green flag. But only a couple, so it's not a whole lot. As Clint Bowyer now he's up to second. He's going to try and take the lead away from Mark Martin coming out of turns 3 and 4. As we're coming down to the wire here. They're almost bumper to bumper here. 51 laps completed, so we'll have 15 to go when we cross the line one more time. Martin, Bowyer, nose to tail, pushing each other through the back straightaway, Clint Bowyer trying to force Martin into making a mistake as he looks to the inside for the lead. Almost hitting each other, not once, but twice. As Bowyer now takes the lead away from Mark Martin with 15 laps to go. Now Bowyer's starting to pull away a little bit. Martin trying to track him down, but he doesn't have a whole lot of help behind him. Gilliland is in third with the Busch brothers sitting in 4th and 5th. Kyle Busch in 4th, Kurt Busch in 5th. Bowyer leads this lap. 14 laps to go here. The laps continue to wind down. It's not a 30 or 40 second lap. It's a 27, 28 second lap time. So these laps go by just as fast as a short track. When you look at a Martinsville or Bristol times, it's like 15, 16 seconds. Here we're just 10 seconds slower, which is pretty crazy considering this track is 1 mile bigger than both Martinsville and Bristol. And you saw in the background there, lap traffic ahead. Stewart, Stremme, and is that Stremy? No, that's Sorensen. God, I mix them up all the time. And Truex. And Bowyer is going to get held up by Tony Stewart, which will give the advantage to Mark Martin if Bowyer gets into the underneath Stewart, which he does. Sorry, my game model tabbed out for a second. My bad. That's the second time my game's done that. David Gilliland now up in this top 3 mix here. We said it before that lap traffic was going to become a factor, and it has. That's helped Mark Martin close the gap between him and Bowyer as we're coming to 11 laps to go. Next time by would be the 10 to go mark. Race is coming down to the wire. It looks like only 3 guys are going to have a chance to win this race. Bowyer, Martin, and Gilliland. Take your bets at home. Who's going to win this race? If anybody, it's going to be somebody in that top 10 list that you see on the top left of your screen. Gonna be one of those 10. If we have a caution, something could happen and mix this field up, and we'll have a intense battle. 10 laps to go. Gilliland makes a move for second. David Gilliland will take the second spot away, but that only gains time on Clint Bowyer. That gains a lot of space between him and Clint Bowyer. Bowyer controlling the way. I think this camera angle is the best camera angle to keep an eye on, like the gaps and stuff. 58 laps completed. Clint Bowyer has a almost 0.4 of a second lead on David Gilliland and Mark Martin as those two continue to battle. Martin looking to the inside, trying to take the second spot away, and he'll do just that in a slingshotting fashion. Mark Martin closing the gap quickly between him and Clint Bowyer, but it's going to take a few laps for him to get there. 8 laps to go here at Las Vegas. 0.2 of a second, 2.5 of a second gap between first and second. Car length and a half between first and second. As we come down to the line, we'll have 7 laps to go. The suspense is building up because one lap, Clint Bowyer will gain a lot of time. The next lap, Clint Bowyer will lose all and some more time. Look at Mark Martin closing down the gap between him and Clint Bowyer. It was just a car length and a half just a lap ago. Now it's just less than a car length as they come down to 6 laps to go here at Las Vegas International Speedway. Clint Bowyer trying to hang on to win for the first time in this 07 car for Richard Childress Racing. Mark Martin trying to win for the first time in Ginn Racing in the 01 car. It'll come down to the 5 laps to go when we come across the start-finish line. 5 laps to go. It is go time for Mark Martin, and it's hard, aggressive time for Clint Bowyer, if you want to say that. Clint Bowyer trying to pull away as much as he can. He's hanging on to a 0.2 of a second lead, but I don't know if he'll have enough time. Clint Bowyer using up a lot of his stuff. Mark Martin trying to hang on and hang on to the gap that he has, hopefully hoping that Mark Martin does not screw up anything. Here comes Mark Martin. Look at the inside for the lead with 4 laps to go here at Las Vegas. Mark Martin looks to the inside for the lead, and he gets there. Mark Martin takes the lead at Las Vegas. Martin pulling away just a little bit, but it's the 2 Richard Childress teammates just right behind him, and you know those 2 are going to be helping each other out as Jeff Burton takes the second spot away. Do not count out the 31 nor the 07. With just 3 laps to go, they can easily close on this 01 at any moment. Even though Mark Martin has probably the biggest lead we've had all night with almost a half a second lead, the gap has closed incredibly. Look at the gap between the 01 and the 31 right now. Half of that time has been cut in half. Okay, that's not English. Half of that time has been cut. We'll say that again. 2 laps to go here at Las Vegas. Like I said, half a second lead cut in half, just like that in one lap. Which means Mark Martin's win is not going to be a gimme, it's going to be a hard-fought victory, as two Richard Childress teammates are going to team up with one another and try and get the race win. They only have one more lap to do it. White flags in the air, given to Mark Martin first. But can Mark Martin get the checkered flag first? We'll find that out and just after these 2 quarters. Less than 0.2 of a second of a gap between first and second. Mark Martin has one more quarter to go to win the first race in the 0-1 machine for Gid Racing. Out of turn 4, Mark Martin will win at Las Vegas. That is Mark Martin's first win for Gid Racing. And that's Richard Childress' first, second, and third. Actually, that's Clint Bowyer's first top 5 this season. We'll go ahead and go through the official results as these drivers come down pit road. As drivers come down pit road. Give me just one moment and we'll get the official standings up on the board. Alright, your official standings for the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400. Mark Martin wins today's race by 2.5 of a second over Jeff Burton. Mark Martin led 12 laps today. Jeff Burton led 1. Clint Bowyer leads the most amount of laps with 27. He'll finish in 3rd. Kyle Busch in 4th. Kurt Busch in 5th. So the Busch brothers finish in the top 5. David Gilliland in 6th. Ryan Newman 7th. Bobby Labonte in 8th. Dave Blaney 9th. And Scott Riggs will round out the top 10. David Reagan will finish in 11th. Brian Vickers in 12th. Casey Kane 13th. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who won last week, will finish in 14th. AJ Allmendinger in 15th. Carl Edwards in 16th. Jeff Gordon in 17th. Greg Biffle 18th. And he will be the last driver on the lead lap as Tony Stewart finishes the first car 1 lap down at 19th. And Reed Sorensen in 20th. Mark Truex Jr. 21st. Tony Raines in 22nd. Ricky Rudd finishes 23rd. Matt Kenseth 24th. Casey Mears 25th. Denny Hamlin 26th. JJ Yaley in 27th. Jamie McMurray in 28th. Kyle Petty 29th. Dale Jarrett in 30th. David Stremme in 31st. David Bruneman 32nd. Elliott Sadler 34th. Paul Menard 34th. Juan Pablo Montoya 35th. Robbie Gordon 36th. Jeff Green 37th. Ken Schrader 38th. Michael Waltrip 39th. Kenny Wallace in 40th. And Jimmie Johnson and Kevin Harvick will round out your final 2 as those 2 got involved in an accident early in the race, causing Jimmie Johnson for the 2nd week in a row to DNF. We'll go ahead and get the chase standings up for you right now. With how good of a finish Jeff Gordon had, he moves on up to 1st place in the standings. 2 points ahead of Carl Edwards. 12 points behind the leader is Dale Earnhardt Jr. in 3rd. Mark Martin is the biggest mover in the top 10. 4th place and 38 points behind the leader. Tony Stewart 39 points behind the leader in 5th. Casey Kane 6th place, 42 points behind the leader. Clint Bowyer in 7th, 51 points behind the leader. Actually, Clint Bowyer and Mark Martin gained the same amount of spots in the top 10, so they tied for the most spots gained in the entirety of the top 10. Brian Vickers 8th in the standings, David Reagan 9th in the standings, and Ryan Newman rounds out your top 10 in the point standings and the rest of that. We'll scroll through the screen right now. We'll go ahead and update you on Jimmie Johnson as he sits 37th in the standings. AJ Allmendinger moves, I think, let's see, who was the most spots gained was AJ Allmendinger. He gains 12 spots to get 35th in the standings. And the biggest loser is Kevin Harvick, who lost 11 spots. So next week we go to Atlanta Motor Speedway. So we're going to be seeing another action-packed race. And we'll see another points shake-up after that, as we were only 3 races completed. we're just about ready to hit that point in the season where we're going to be seeing who's the more consistent driver and all that sort of stuff. Well, for that, we'll end it here on Fox. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Las Vegas Under the Lights. We'll see you guys next week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Good night, everybody.